Hello, everybody. We are going to get started here in just a minute. Thanks for joining. A few minutes early. While we wait for some people to join, some more people to join, I have this little icebreaker chatbot. So I thought we could kind of play around with this while we wait for folks. So this says, hi there, normally I would help you focus on and answer relevant questions. What if instead I just distract you? So which of these would we like to try? A dad joke, a picture of a cat, or a riddle? Put in the chat which one you'd like to check out while we do this little icebreaker and wait for folks. Okay, Corey's chiming in with a dad joke. We'll give that a try. A dad joke. Hopefully this will work. All right, here's a dad joke. Why can't your hand be 12 inches long? Because then it would be a foot.
Oh my gosh. That was a great one.
We need to have a drum thing.
Yes.
All right, Alicia wants a riddle. I would like a riddle too. Let's do that. Here's a riddle. What has to be broken before you can use it? All right, anyone want to venture a guess? I don't, by the way, I don't know the answer. So what has to be broken before you can use it? No cheating. All right. My mind is multitasking for the webinar, so that's my excuse for not. Coconut. Raja, that's good. Let's see. An egg.
I feel like coconut counts.
Yeah, totally.
I was thinking glow stick.
Although, you know, a couple Sundays ago, we were using an egg to dip and make decorations on. So let's do a couple more while we wait for a few more people to join.
Ooh, cat picture.
Thank you, Valerie. That way we do the trifecta. So we'll do a picture of a cat. There's the picture of a cat. All right, that's great. Let's do one more. How about one more dad joke, folks? Then we'll actually get into why we're here today. Just can't help myself because I am a dad. Why was 2019 afraid of 2020? Because they had a fight in 2021. Okay, there's a groan. All right, well, if you, any of you are facilitators and want a little fun icebreaker, there's the link to this and feel free to use it. This is something that our colleague Emma Mason made and it's really fun. So, all right, so with that, thank you for joining today. My name is Vince Hahn. I'm the founder of Bubble Coach and I'm delighted today to facilitate this webinar, on-demand learner assistance with a chatbot on Microsoft Teams or Slack. Actually, it's Microsoft Teams or Slack or Google Chat or WebEx Teams, any collaboration platform, but that was too long to put in the title. So before we get started, I'm going to ask my colleague, Corey Richards, to help us with some housekeeping, and then we'll get going.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. So housekeeping, just quickly, we are recording this. So if you need to drop at any time or if you'd like to share the recording with anyone, we'll send it out later today. Along with, there's some links we'll be using. So we'll make sure to include those if you don't catch them. And the last piece of housekeeping, we are going to use the chat throughout the day, just like we have. So it does default to hosts and panelists. So if you want to use the chat, please switch that to everyone so we can all engage together and share comments. All right, that's it. Thank you, Vince. Let's get started.
Thanks, Corey. Appreciate it. And this is me. I would love to connect with you. I just put the link to my LinkedIn in the chat. If we're not connected, please click on that and send me a connection request. We'd love to connect. I share things about running, about, of course, chatbots and just entrepreneurship. And I would love to connect with you and see what you're up to on LinkedIn. Throughout the webinar today, sometimes I reference like resources as people have questions that, are sort of ad hoc. And so you can email me at vince@mobilecoach.com if there's anything that I reference that you would like a copy of, or if you have any questions in advance, you can shoot me an email, vince@mobilecoach.com. So let's get started. So we just did an icebreaker bot, but I'd like you to try something a little bit more learner related. So a few months ago, we did a webinar where we created an acronym bot with some learning and development and corporate training folks. So I would love for you to give that a try. There are 3 ways to try it. You can try it via SMS, and to do that, you take your phone and you type in this 856 number you see on the screen, and you say hi, and then you get started. You can try it on the web, and Corey just put the link for the web widget in the chat, or if you have Microsoft Teams, you could try it there, or you could try all of them. It's the same content, but you might be interested in trying to see what it looks like through these different channels. So give that a try, an acronym bot. And I believe this version, this is an acronym bot that is, the content is acronyms related to learning and development. So you can try L&D, you can try LMS, acronyms like that. And then it might even allow you to teach it an acronym if you search for something that's not there. So give this a try, and then please put in the chat what acronyms you tried, just so I can see what you tried and and that also helps me know that it's working, and will lower my blood pressure in case it's not working. So put in the chat what acronyms you've tried. And also, if you could put in the chat which version you tried, that would be pretty interesting to me as well. Did you try SMS or the web or Teams? So give everyone in a minute. I know I'm asking for a lot. You have to multitask. So thanks, Alec. So Alec put in Sherm via SMS. I'm curious, I don't know if the acronym bot would have returned Sherm. I think Sherm, you're referring to the organization Sherm, right? Yeah, that's good. We'll have to add that one. Addie, great. Patricia, did it return something back for Addie? We'd be 0 for 2 if. Oh, good. Phew, I'm glad it did. Yeah, certainly should if it's a acronym bot for L&D. Patricia, which version did you try? SMS or the web or Teams? All right. Hey, it's a couple of people trying SMS. Great. Awesome. Well, these links are still available in the chat. I know we just filled up the chat, but go ahead and go up and try it if you haven't. Thanks, Kavitha. I hope I'm saying your name correctly. Using the web widget. Great. Excellent. So of course, there are different types of chatbots, and I always like to start a webinar just getting some user engagement with the chatbot, just so we can get accustomed to what we're talking about. There's sort of 2 major categories of chatbots to consider. The first, the one that you see on the left of my screen, is I call sort of machine learning plus NLP. Now there's another acronym. NLP stands for natural language parsing. And typically we see these types of chatbots on the web, on websites, and the normal use case is customer service. So you might be familiar with a chatbot like this if you log into your bank or to your credit card, or maybe your healthcare provider. These are very common, and the use case is, hey, how can I help you? Typically, these actually have buttons now to help you search, scan what you're looking for, like commonly requested topics, and you just click on a button. On the right-hand side, it's a different type of chatbot, and that's what I call a programmatic or rules-based chatbot. And this is much more intentional. It's a chatbot where the one on the left is much more transactional. And what I mean by that is, I have a question. Can the chatbot answer my question? If so, great. And then I'm done with it. And the main function of me coming to the website is actually the website, not the chatbot. Whereas on the right-hand side, a programmatic chatbot tends to be a lot more purposeful. So it has, you can have, instead of being transactional, you can actually have an ongoing conversation or have actually an ongoing relationship with the chatbot. One of the biggest design elements when you're creating a chatbot is, where is that chatbot going to live? And based on where it lives, it opens up these different possibilities depending on what type of chatbot you want to build. So, for example, you used, for those of you that tried the acronym chatbot, I offered 3 choices: SMS, Teams, and web. And all of those represent the different choices on this screen. On the left-hand side is web. And so if you think about web, if you go to a website and it has a chatbot and you ask it a question, and then the next day you go to the same website, it won't remember you. It won't remember that you asked a question. It will just pop up and treat you as it's seeing you for the first time. In the middle, for web portals, like web portals can be any sort of collaborative platform or something you're signing into, like a Microsoft Teams. What's uniquely a unique characteristic of that type of chatbot is now you can have a persistent connection to the user because you know who they are. So if you used Teams to interact with the acronym chatbot, that acronym chatbot will stay in your Teams chat. Well, will get buried after you have other chats, but it'll be there. And so you can actually program that chatbot to initiate some sort of nudge or reminder or learning activity, because now I know who you are and I'm connected with you. And that's very similar to a mobile messaging platform like SMS. Once you interact with the chatbot via SMS, the chatbot now knows your phone number and can be programmed to interact with you. So if I go back to the previous slide, that lends itself to a lot of cool programmatic rules. Like, for example, if I know who you are, and maybe I have my programmatic chatbot rules attached to my learning management system, I could do things like, hey, I can detect when Vince has finished a course and then send a message to say, hey, I noticed you finished Security 101. Here's a quick quiz for you. And that you can extend that learning experience into a chatbot. So that's where a programmatic rules-based chatbot can be really powerful, really interesting. And that can be, very, so that can be that is a really important distinction in how you think about designing the chatbot, is where the chatbot's going to live. Now, part of today's webinar, a big part of today's webinar is, what if you want to create an on-demand learner assistance chatbot on Microsoft Teams or on Slack? As I mentioned at the beginning, this can also be extended to any worksite collaboration platform like Google Workplace or WebEx Teams, or like Facebook has a workplace as well. All these different options. And so I'm going to focus just very quickly on Teams. We could spend a whole webinar on exactly how that works. So essentially, each of these workplace platforms allows for messaging. So if I get on Teams and you're on Teams and we're colleagues, I can message you using Teams, right? So all of those platforms allow for chatbots, which is great. It's awesome. And they try to make it as easy as possible to put in chatbots for your organization. And so these chatbots can be designed for learning, which is what we're focused on today, but it could be all sorts of functions for chatbots. If you are a Slack user, they have the well-known Slack bot that can do lots of different functions for users. So I would like to just pause here for a second. Would you mind putting in the chat what workplace collaboration platform your company uses? Is it Microsoft Teams? Is it WebEx Teams? Is it Google? Is it Slack? Just to be curious to know. I would say that when the pandemic started, a lot of corporations had a workplace collaboration platform that was underutilized, and with work from home, they suddenly got a huge influx of usage. And I've seen a majority of enterprises that I've worked with or have familiar with, where maybe had Teams but didn't really use it, and then all of a sudden using Teams a lot. So great. So a lot of Teams, some WebEx Teams, Slack, Yammer. Thank you for putting that in there. That sort of breakout is very similar to what I'm accustomed to seeing. So anyway, so this screen shows you a screenshot of what it would be like to configure a chatbot into Teams. And so, of course, this is the Microsoft Azure interface. A chatbot is considered an application, and there are actually several different screens to configure how you want your chatbot to appear to your teams. And this is just one of those screenshots just to give you an idea of what it's like. So here you can see you can name your application. In this screenshot, this is a social bot. And then you have some configuration options like being able to determine who has access to this chatbot. And there are many other sort of knobs and dials that you can configure with your chatbot. I have a whole slide deck about how, step by step, how to integrate a platform or a chatbot into Teams. If you're interested in that, just shoot me a quick email. I'll be happy to send that to you. I have something similar for Slack as well. And then we've got documents for like Google Workplace. So if anyone's curious about the actual step-by-step function, please let me know and be happy to share what we've learned. I will say that for a lot of organizations, there's a prescribed Azure admin that you'd have to work with. But again, it shouldn't be a lot. Like you shouldn't have to have any engineers involved. It's just a very easy configuration exercise. So that is it gives you a glimpse of how you would integrate with Microsoft Teams or Slack. Let me mention, if anyone has questions along the way, if I'm going too fast, too slow, just mention it in the chat and then I'll try to react to that. So let's pivot to the actual purpose of today's chatbot. Now, we talked a little bit about what chatbots are. We've played around with the chatbot. I talked a little bit about how to plug that into Teams or Slack. So let's talk a little bit about on-demand learner assistance. And so another way to think about that is like, hey, I want to have a chatbot be the user interface for learners. Now, why would you want that? Well, chatbots tend to be really easy to use. Frictionless. I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But what you want to do is create that ease of use chatbot experience for your learners and connect it with the knowledge that they need. So knowledge bases, articles, job aids, things like that. So typically, when you think about a knowledge base, here's a screenshot of a knowledge base on the right. This is a screenshot of the knowledge base for Google Drive. You can search for an issue that you might have, or there are help topics or articles you can navigate through. Now, you might ask yourself, and feel free to answer in the chat if you'd like. So this is a little bit easier if we're meeting in person. I could kind of pick on people to answer this question. But if you have a knowledge base in your workplace where there's like a repository of articles, is it underutilized, and why? So I think it's worth taking a minute and to have some folks type in an answer, or if you raise your hand, maybe if it's easier for you to explain. I don't know if Corey has the ability to unmute you, but do you have a knowledge base where you can search for articles within your organization, and is it underutilized? If so, why? So Patricia says too much time, need to access. Thank you. Michael says they're using Docebo. It's underutilized because we're just setting it up. Well, we'll give you a pass on that. Holly's comments are really insightful comment. Hard to find the right keywords. One of the biggest challenges with search in general is searching by nature implies that I don't know, I'm looking for something. That's why I'm searching for it. So actually, human error is a huge reason why search is ineffective, because sometimes I'm not quite sure what to search for. So I don't know what the right words are. And then, of course, then the search is not very efficient. Also, a lot of times people will search with typos or incorrect grammar. And that's really hard for computers to understand right now. And so there's lots of reasons where I've seen companies invest a lot in knowledge bases and be underwhelmed with what they're supposed to do. So thanks for chiming in with that. So keep that in mind, because that's what we're trying to solve with the chatbot. If you can solve this problem with the chatbot and have on-demand learner assistance that helps people in the moment of need then boy, that's a lot of value that you can deliver into your organization. So let's think about knowledge base. So we just had this discussion about knowledge bases. So how can this use case translate for learners? Like, what types of things would learners be interested in getting assistance with? So here are just some ideas, some technical help, like how do I? Um, uh, I've talked with many clients and organizations who say, you know what, it's extraordinary, like it's extraordinary how much time we have to help people recover their passwords for our LMS. I kind of chuckle because it's a frustrating chuckle, and you can chime in if that's something you've experienced in your organization. But very commonly asked, or where's our LMS? It could be another question that some people ask. So some technical help is a bucket. Performance support, like, boy, I'm stuck, I need help right now. Learning journeys. I know I need to learn something. What should I learn? Maybe I recognize that my organization have hundreds of courses. Where do I even start? Or what about collaboration, where I have feedback or I have an idea that can help my colleagues, help our organization? Where does that go? And so I think these are all interesting categories for use case for learners in terms of a chatbot. And if you look behind these green bubbles, this is a screenshot of a sample chatbot in Microsoft Teams, where this is a chatbot called a knowledge base for learners. Choose a menu item or search for something. Search courses, technical help, job aids, connect me with a subject matter expert. I've lost my password. You'll notice these are buttons, but the chatbot could also interpret if someone were to type in a message. And just parenthetically, what Microsoft Teams does is if you have many buttons, they'll automatically paginate them for you. So if I were to click on, this is a screenshot, but if I were to click on this arrow, then it would show me the next bank of buttons. So yeah, so that's kind of some ideas I have for use cases of learners. Do you have any ideas? Keep that question in mind. But just to reiterate why this is a compelling use case, it's frictionless. Like, I don't have to download anything. I actually don't need a username and password for the chatbot. I could just, if it's on Teams, just access the chatbot on Teams, just as if I was going to chat with a colleague. It's a one-stop shop. So a lot of times companies have different landing pages for different things. So technical support's over here, and knowledge base is over there, and maybe job aids is over there on our SharePoint server. And okay, that's a lot of things to juggle. So a chatbot can just be one UI that can get me what I need right in that one interface. And also, if you need human intervention, like I showed that one idea of like, hey, connect me with a subject matter expert. The chatbot could do all that work for me, and then I can interact with that subject matter expert right in the chat. And also, analytics is a really big deal in really almost anything we're doing now in this century. And you think about what types of things could you learn from a chatbot like this that's engaging all your learners? Well, you could, like if you have a website, you can measure how many website visitors you are, maybe your LMS analytics, how many people have logged in, how long are they logged in for, what courses are they taking, what about course completion rates? So we're all accustomed to some needing analytics to help inform our better business decisions. For chatbot, the analytics you can get are also really interesting. So, what buttons are people choosing? What questions do people have? How long do they interact with the chatbot? How often do they interact with the chatbot? We'll give you lots of analytics to help you see, to gauge where your learners are and what they're needing and what they're asking for, what resources that they need. So I think that's a really important part of why a chatbot is really compelling. So, look, there's some animation I didn't know about on this slide. So let's quickly have this discussion. Are there features you can think of that would be helpful for your learners? So let me just go back to this slide real quick. We'll go back there. So would there be buttons in your chatbot in Teams or in Slack that you would like to see your learners have access to? Any ideas come to mind? feel free to put your answers in the chat and see what kind of ideas you have. Technical help, feedback, two top cases for Valerie. Thank you. So Patricia, let me, so yes, you can. A lot of it depends on, so Patricia asks about 508 or accessibility, and that's of course becoming the norm nowadays to make sure that the user experience is accessible to those that need it. A lot of that depends on the channel of the chatbot you choose. So for example, if you have an SMS-based chatbot, you're taking advantage of the natural accessibility features in your smartphone. And same with Microsoft Teams, where there are accessibility options in there. A web widget too, you can make your buttons and have it where your browser can read you what's on the screen. So generally speaking, yes, you can make your chatbot accessible. A lot of it will depend on what channel you choose and the nature of the design. As with any technology, when you're trying to do 508 compatibility, it adds some cycles to your development work, but certainly something that should be accommodated. So let's see, links to websites, other platforms. Oh, that's great, like a concierge, like especially if you've got lots of links and lots of resources, Jennifer. Thanks for bringing that up. Memory boosters, post-training memory boosters, technical questions, going to what IT department. Yeah, I can see that as well. Learning journeys, technical. Thank you for that. Yeah, those are all great ideas. And so the nice thing about chatbots is you can come up with ideas and you can add buttons and you can make it very iterative. So that's another really powerful feature of a chatbot. So I want you to kind of think in your mind what the ideal buttons would be for your on-demand learner assistance chatbot. And now what we're going to do is we're going to talk through the steps of how you would make it. Okay, and so I'm going to go through this pretty quickly, just watching the clock here. But generally speaking, there are three major steps. First is, where's the content? The chatbot needs to know what to say. So you have to identify and organize that content. A lot of times that content already exists on like SharePoint or knowledge base or FAQ somewhere. And so great, you've identified, you organize it, but you have to connect that with the chatbot. So that's step number 2. And step number 3 is then you want to design the chatbot experience based on the functions and the requirements that you have. So we're going to talk about all 3 of these pretty briefly, and I'm going to show you an example. So the first step, identifying and organizing the content. Ask yourself, where is the source content today? So some of the ideas that you had, what technical questions go to what IT department? Does that exist somewhere today? Is that in your intranet? Is that in a spreadsheet somewhere, or in Workday or something like that? So where does it exist? Sometimes it's in some existing web-based system. Sometimes it's in a spreadsheet. Sometimes even in the 21st century, it just exists in people's head. You have to try to get it out. So just realize, if now you want that content accessible via chatbot, it has to be in a digital format and it has to be accessible. And so fortunately, a lot of systems today are API friendly or interoperable friendly. So that's great. Or if it's in a spreadsheet, that's okay too. It can be imported. And then there's a technology, what's a technology procedure called content scraping. I don't know if you know what that is, but essentially there's really good technology nowadays where you can actually have a bot or some sort of algorithm go to a web page and just scrape it for content, and then you can auto ingest that for the chatbot, so you don't have to double type everything. You need to identify where your content is and organize it. So the next step would be you have to connect that content with the chatbot. Now there are many chatbot platforms out there. Mobile Coach, the company that I lead, is a chatbot authoring platform, but there are others. And Microsoft, if you're using Teams, they have their own bot platform that you can go in and author with. So depending on what chatbot platform you choose, you'll have to investigate, okay, now with this content in digital format, how do I plug that into the chatbot? So I'm going to show you how we do that with Mobile Coach, just because I'm a pretty visual person. So maybe I understand these words, but actually what does it look like? So let me show you what this looks like in Mobile Coach speak for visual purposes. If I can actually exit out of this. So let's do the acronym chatbot. Now, if any of you that joined late, you can maybe, Corey, if I could ask you to put the acronym chatbot link back into the chat so people could try it out. So here is the list of acronyms that that chatbot was part. And again, this is in a spreadsheet form. So we will add a Sherman here. That's one thing we've learned today. There's Addie, and so you can see some of. And where did these acronyms come from? Actually, we did a webinar a couple months ago, and I just asked the webinar attendees to start giving us acronyms that are specific to L&D, and that's where this came from. So you see SCORM, different things like that. So I had a simple spreadsheet, and then when I go to the Mobile Coach platform, which I'm going to need to log in, do that. So this is the chatbot that that you link to. You can see if I clicked on this link right there, it takes me right to the chatbot, so I can try it. So let me just make sure this is the right one. I put in Addie, and there it is. So how is this configured? Well, we have a set of rules. So if I go back to the chatbot, you can see when I first initiated it, where there's a fun little image, and then an introductory message that gives me some instructions. So if I go back to the platform, there's the image, there's the introductory message. So because this is an on-demand chatbot, then if I go to my content tab and then click on knowledge bases, you can see I have an acronym knowledge base. And all I did was import my spreadsheet, and boom, I had my chatbot. So pretty simple. Now, of course, there was a little bit of rules that I had to create and configure to do that, but pretty straightforward how to do. So that gives you some glimpse of how it works in the Mobile Coach platform. And by the way, if anyone would like a deeper dive into the Mobile Coach platform, all the features and how you would create all sorts of chatbots, please let us know. I'd be happy to show you a demo. So, but I wanted to give you a visual of this step, organizing the content. In this case, it was pretty easy. It just created a spreadsheet and how to connect it into a chatbot platform for Mobile Coach. It was just simply uploading that spreadsheet. All right, so then next is the design. So for step 3, the design, I do have several slides on this because it's actually the most critical part, is designing the user experience. So you want to design your chatbot. Now, if this is an on-demand chatbot and you're putting it on Teams, you definitely should utilize the buttons. The buttons are just so much easier, and it limits sort of typos and user-created errors. And so you can use menus and submenus, and you should base this on the most common requests. I had a question recently when I was doing this presentation of how many buttons is too many. And actually what we have found is we really haven't found that limit. The human brain is actually very good at scanning lots of buttons. And so it's better to have many buttons because sometimes those buttons will prompt people like, oh yeah, that's what I'm looking for, when they don't quite have the words for it. So menus definitely help with navigation. We highly recommend coming up with the right menus. I will also say that with chatbots, it's so much easier to do A/B testing than with traditional software builds. So you can experiment, like on one day, have your menu ordered in a certain way, and the next day, order it in a different way, and just kind of see the differences with engagement. And you can learn a lot about your audience that way. Then if you do have an existing knowledge base, then what do you do to to get the chatbot to present it properly? So you can link to existing content. So the nice thing about a chatbot, one of the limiting factors of a chatbot, actually, not everything about chatbot's perfect. One of the limiting factors is you have this message bubble. So if you create, like, imagine like a 2,000 word article in a message bubble, people aren't going to read that. So use links. You can link to articles, you can link to videos, you can link to images, lots of things to do. So link to existing content makes it pretty easy. You will have to author the message that will link to it. So there's a little bit of work there, but it's a pretty minimal work. You can create a brief synopsis that is message bubble friendly. That's a chatbot term, message bubble friendly, and then link to the article. So that's what this is right here, the screenshot of that. Or you can data dump the content right into the message bubble. And this can work if you do some formatting. But the downside of this is you do have to author it and format it. And if you've got thousands of articles, it would be a lot easier just to send links. If you just have like 12 FAQs or something more manageable, then maybe it's worth the time to just keep everybody right within the chatbot bubble. So it kind of depends on the nature of your knowledge-based content and how dense it is and what the volume of that content's like. I'm going to kind of scoot forward here. So include human intervention. So, of course, the purpose of the chatbot, one of the big values of the chatbot is that it's automated. Chatbots never sleep. Chatbots can handle thousands of conversations at the same time. This is why it's really great for organizations because it'll save you money, helps you scale, helps you save a ton of time. It gives people a more delightful experience because they don't have to wait around for people. Great, chatbots are very compelling that way. However, there are times where you want to include human intervention because computers are limited still, and sometimes people have really unique challenges where they just need to talk to a human being. So so ask yourself when you design your chatbot, when do we want to hand off people to a human? Could it be that we want to hand off people to a subject matter expert? Oftentimes when you interact with a chatbot in a customer service use case, there's an option like, hey, talk with a live agent. And sometimes people go right there. Great. If you want to offer that as an option, be deliberate with that in the workflow. Sometimes you can have that workflow trigger when the chatbot gets spoofed or can't understand what the user's saying. You can alert a human so they can go in and just see what's going on and help give people help. So our recommendation is to give people an easy way to reach a human. Certainly, that could be new work for human to have to handle, but on the whole, these chatbots can be handling so much with automation. As a whole, it should definitely save your organization time and, of course, make happier learners. So I'm going to just really briefly touch on this one. I actually just realized how many acronyms I have in this presentation. I had KB earlier. Now there's NLP. NLP stands for natural language parsing. And a lot of times when people think about artificial intelligence or chatbots, they think, oh, well, isn't that what chatbots do? Yes and no. So programmatic chatbots don't have to use NLP. The way that NLP is set up for is really it's designed for extreme user volumes, like think millions of queries and with very deep content libraries. And the idea is that because there's millions of queries and it's just so overwhelming, impossible for humans to handle, that it's going to be right some of the time and wrong some of the time. And in a learning environment, actually, you might say, well, we don't want the chatbot to be wrong at all. And so that's where programmatic chatbots will always deliver exactly how you've programmed it to deliver. And if the chatbot gets stumped, you can actually pass that to a human. But there are times where you can employ NLP when you have extreme user volumes. Be aware that it's not going to be 100% effective, and it is quite expensive to set up and maintain. So that's my 2 cents on NLP. I alluded to this a little bit earlier, but I just think like the type of feedback you can get, both quantitatively and qualitatively with a chatbot, is just so valuable. So think about a chatbot as it's such a natural survey tool. So I'm interacting with the chatbot. And so let's say you were interacting, like all of you today interacted with the Acronym Bot. And let's say you were doing this ongoing. Imagine that Acronym Bot just casually saying, hey, you've interacted with me for a couple of weeks now. What's been helpful? How could I be better? It's a very natural venue for that, right? So the type of qualitative data you can get about not only the chatbot, but the learning program it might be supporting, I think can be, I would argue, in many cases, more valuable than a traditional online SurveyMonkey assessment, just because you can survey people over time in a much more natural way. And of course, I alluded to some of the quantitative data that's available with chatbots. as earlier as this, as like what menu items are searched the most, what buttons are clicked the most, how many users are engaged, things like that. So you can just learn a lot about your learner environment and how they're interacting with your learning programs in ways that you can't today. And so that in and of itself is a really compelling reason to use chatbots. So now for many organizations, they have never deployed a chatbot to support learning. And in order to do so, you would have to probably come up with a business case, right? So we've done this a lot. We've helped a lot of instructional designers and program managers who really want to try this type of modality out, but they have to get internal approval, and this is new and maybe unproven. So you have to learn how to create a business case. Now, I do have a whole slide deck about how to make a business case for a chatbot. It's got chatbot statistics in it. It's got common use cases in it. If anyone would like that, it's totally free. Just ping me. I'd be happy to send you. It's like 30 slides, and you can just pick and choose what would be best for you. But it's broken up into 4 major categories. I'm going to just do this really quick. You have to define some sort of success metric, which you should do anyway, and you should do this before you start. Let me give you an example of this. So let's say that you want to create a chatbot to help with new hires. Well, how are you going to know whether the chatbot's successful? So a common success metric could be, well, we have this current turnover rate with new hires. Maybe in the first 30 days of someone working at our company, we lose 20% of them or something like that. So maybe the success metric is we want to reduce that by 20%, and so come up with that success metric. And that's not only important for your business case, that will actually help you design your chatbot, because now you're working backwards from a specific outcome. The next is you need to identify how are you going to collect that data. So let's just carry on with this example. If I want to reduce the new hire turnover rate, where's that data today? And how am I going to make sure that I have access to that same data after we deploy, to make sure that I can measure it? So oftentimes that step requires you to collaborate with other departments. So you have to get that collaboration agreement and the project team together in advance. Then you have to compute the program cost. This shouldn't be too hard. How much, so most chatbot platforms cost money. So how much is this going to cost? How much resources is going to take from me? Like, think about the manual work that we just talked about in this presentation. Someone has to figure out where the content is. They have to organize it. You might have to author it. Maybe that's an instructional designer spending a month doing it or 2 weeks doing it. So you have to compute the cost. So now you've got your success metric. How are you going to collect that data? You've got your program cost. Then you can put together your business case and say, hey, if we spend X dollars, we should see this result, and that should make the company this much or save the company this much. So that's, this might be very simple, but you'd be surprised. Sometimes simple is the hardest thing to do. And so it's just really important to stay, stay very disciplined about all 4 steps in the business case. And even if you have budget authority yourself, this is just a really good idea to put together a plan for your chatbot project so you can track it and then promote it after it's done. If you see that it's you're getting a lot of great qualitative feedback, learners are saying, this is great. That might be enough to continue to build chatbots in your platform. But if you can actually deliver business results and package it with a business case that you plan for, all the more better. The CFO would be happy. All right, so now what I'm going to do is offer, so Corey will drop this link into the chat, and thanks for your participation for today's webinar. We are offering to make your very own Acronym Bot. And so what you would do is you would put together a spreadsheet similar to what I showed you. And then, in fact, let me go to this link. I'll show you what this is. Oops. Go to the same link and show you how this works. And then I'd be happy to take questions from people. Of course, put in your name. This is, by the way, fully complimentary. So you put in your name, email address, and then type in what intro message you want for your chatbot. Now, the purpose of us giving you this Acronym Bot is would love to create something that's specific to you and your context to allow you to socialize this with colleagues. If you say, hey, I attended this webinar, this is really cool, you can create something like, hey, I made this Acronym Bot. Check it out and see if this could be a good fit for our organization. And so to do that, you come in and you can name your chatbot and tell us what you want that first message to be. That's this section here. And then here's a template you can download with the first spreadsheet. Just, you can use the same acronyms if you want. You can change them, you can add them. And then as you add your own file and hit submit, someone on our team will create the chatbot for you. And I think, Corey, what did we say? We're going to give you a web link and a Microsoft Teams link. Is that what we're going to do?
Yep, that's what we have set up.
Oh, look, there's an SMS promise too, maybe.
Oh.
Is it going to be SMS?
Why
don't you guys, if you guys want this, tell us how you'd want the chatbot delivered and we'll deliver that for you. So we're happy to do that, and please take us up on that. I think it'd be just kind of a neat thing to do, to have your organization play around with an acronym bot. I think there are some limitations just because it is free and we incur some costs in setting it up. So it's meant just to be like something you socialize with your team and get a few people to check it out. So with that, okay, I'm going to take a breath. We have, of course, everyone's going to get a recording to this, but I'd like to spend the last few minutes. If anyone has any questions, if I went too fast, or if you've got anything you'd like me to clarify, would love to answer some of your questions. Corey, were there any questions in the chat that I missed?
No, just a couple people asking for the business case. So I've written that down. We'll make sure to send that. But I think we've got all the questions.
Any other questions that people might have? Yeah, well, we got plenty of time, so Patricia will let you type in your question. Love to. And if it's easier for you, do we have the ability to unmute people if you want to raise your hand, rather ask your question?
Yes, we do. So if you just raise your hand, I can allow you to talk.
Trisha's raised her hand.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, thank you so much for this. I've learned so much today. I do have a question though. So I'm a part-time faculty member, and I was wondering if I owned Microsoft Office and have Teams on there, can I put a chat on there myself? I mean, a chatbot on there myself, and then give the link to my students to look at instead of going through the university?
Yes,
Teams.
you can. Yep.
Okay.
Anyone can create, and you would have to create an Azure account, and then you'd be able to do that. Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah, great. That's great to take that initiative. Yes, Sandra. I think we're sensitive about sending stuff to everybody if they don't want it. So, but now that you've mentioned you're interested in the business case, Corey, we'll take your name down and we'll send it to you. Any other questions from anyone else? All right. Well, if Alicia, for sure, we'll get you the business case deck. Absolutely. And again, I'll just do another plug. If you're interested in learning about the mobile coach platform and how we create chatbots, please respond to the email that you get. We'd happy to set that up for you. We do have like a whole script library with existing chatbots in there that makes it easy to get up and running. So we'd love to get anyone interested in chatbots, being able to build them out, get them stood up to support your learners. Common use cases are like training reinforcement, onboarding support. We already talked about like new hires today, performance support, compliance and security, lots of really great. We do a lot of D&I chatbots for clients. So a lot of wonderful use cases to use this technology to support learning. So thank you for joining, everybody. It's great to have you with us, and I hope everyone has a wonderful day and a great, can I say great weekend? I mean, it's Thursday afternoon, so yeah, I hope everyone has a great weekend. So thanks for joining, and we appreciate your attendance. Bye, everyone.